It's Monday morning. Bet you couldn't tell that. Well, it might not be from where you are. You might be watching from Europe, in which case it would be Monday early afternoon. Yeah, so I'm back with relaxing painting, and it looks like the music is not playing. And I thought I figured out how to get it started. It thinks it's playing, but it's probably going to the wrong place. Yeah, and I'm not sure how to fix that. So we might not have music for a little bit until someone can come down and show me how to redirect it to a different, not the source, but the output device. Because there were more updates, which I managed to, for the most part, defer. So who knows what's going to happen Wednesday if the updates happen between now and then. That's just a thing. I'm continuing to work on these demon things. I got the armor done. I think that came out pretty well. You know, the metallic undercoat with the speed paint overcoat that made it, turn red. And I got the base coat on the wings. And that's a little, I expected it to not be quite that glossy. I'm going to have to remember that this, what color did I use? Vermilion. Is both slightly more orange and glossy than it is on my color chart. So to finish these up, I'm going to make an effort to dry brush. I'm so bad at that. A kind of a glossy black pearlescent paint on the wings to highlight the feather structure and to make them dark, a little bit darker. The red and black kind of theme going on. So I'm going to try to do the dry brushing on that, and hopefully that will work. We'll find out. I'm going to continue to try to get the sticky tack to hold the foot. And then there's a lot of detail on these that needs to be done. And so it will look like hardly anything's getting done, but it will take me forever to make it look like hardly anything's getting done. I need to paint the horns. That's a 2-part process. I'm going to paint them really dark gray and then give them red pointy things, highlights on the tips. I need to paint the hands and face, and that might be a 3-step process. So I'm going to paint them ivory. It will be very slow and painstaking as I use a teeny brush and try to get the paint on where I want it and not where I don't. And then I'm going to wash it in gray to make it look kind of ashen and also to highlight some of the features like the mouth and the eyes. And then there might be a 3rd step, which is to do a little bit of highlighting on like the nose and the brows. We'll see. Nicole is really good at that. She tried to explain to me how to do that, but I'm not the artist that she is. I need to paint the sword. I'm going to stick with one color theme. I'm just using this really dark red like I used on the whip. Okay, I'm going to paint the hilt that color. I'm also going to be using that on the boots later. So I think the way this will work is that I'm going to get the horns and the hands and face done. Well, yeah, the dry brushing on the wings, of course. And then I'm going to take them off the sticky tack because I need to paint the boots the same color as the hilt of the swords. And so I'm going to give up on these holders at that point, do those bits. And then the blade of the sword, I'm going to be painting copper. I put a test bit down here. And I think that looks pretty good. And what I'm going to do then is probably take a tiny bit of the speed paint and just do it right along the outside edges of the swords, just to see how it looks. This is the vermilion for the wings, and I put this down so that I could practice dry brushing. Yep, and then, I'm going to forget about these, but at some point I need to paint these. These are the bases. These things are flying, so they actually get on here, and I'm just paint these glossy black and do that near the end. So I'm not sure how long all of this is going to take. Sometimes when I'm doing this kind of thing, it'll be like noon, I'll be almost done, and I'll just go to 12:30 and end early. Or it just might take forever, and it might go until 2 before I finish them. I'm not sure. We'll find out. When it comes to this little detail stuff, like I said, it tends to take a long time to get tiny bits of paint on these models, at least for me. So that's the plan for today. I've only used up, I need to go on at least until 10:15 after. Who would accuse me of, I spend 20 minutes before I can even find my brushes, but I laid the brushes out here on Friday, so I don't have to look for them. I've got all the colors I need already laid out. I don't know. It's like I'm prepared, and there's nothing to be done then, I guess, other than maybe do some relaxing painting. I said that over the weekend I would do some research on 1960s TV or something to chat about, but I didn't. So I don't know. Can talk about the weather, can talk about, that's always fun. So you all know that this is being streamed live, unless you're watching it on YouTube later, in which case it's not. This is being streamed from Michigan, and Michigan has had, November and December are always kind of weird. Sometimes the snow comes really early. In fact, we did. Like last week, there was about 2 inches of snow, but then it warms up and melts. And it's not unusual to basically have the whole month of December here be like 42 degrees, totally overcast, and rain and drizzle. So everything is just kind of gray and wet. But then there's always the Christmas miracle, and probably like 9 years out of 10, if we have that kind of December, there's snow on like the 23rd or the 24th. and then we forget about how gray and damp everything was for the preceding 45 days. We're currently in a gray and damp kind of cycle. It's been gray and damp now for several weeks, and today is the first day in probably like 5 days where there isn't any precipitation. That will end. The precipitation is supposed to come back tomorrow, but then we might have 2 days. We might have 2 days without precipitation. It's been a little frustrating because we're trying to get our holiday decorations up. This is the dry brushing thing I'm trying to get. Yeah. It's like this tiniest little bit of paint on here. And I want to get it just on the top surfaces. So I'm going to start on the back of this wing. I'm just going to try to lightly touch the surface. Any paint on the brush. One thing I did learn is that it's easy to just, with the dry brushing, if you need more, to just do it, just do it over the surface again. But you can't really make it less. If too much gets on, there's nothing to be done about it except repaint it. So, if you look at it, I don't know if it's showing up on camera very well or not, but this black pearlescent paint is being applied to the very top surfaces. Wait, yeah, you can kind of see the two since they're next to each other. It seems, what I'm trying to do seems to be kind of working. So I'm going to just keep at it with these tiny little bits. Yep. These models have no, I mean, all they've got are the feet, right? The music's not playing and I'm not chatting. Um, yeah, given that I don't really have anything much to talk about, is that just like used up everything. I've used up nuclear Armageddon. I've used up the annihilation of the television antenna industry. I don't know. Gilligan's Island, Beverly Hillbillies. I don't know. Maybe you should just, maybe it's time to just like focus on one old television show and just that. That's all. Just that. Done that with cartoons, you know. Like, did you know that Quick Draw McGraw and El Kabong were the same one? Yeah. I don't know if they were intended to be. The animation is exactly the same. So I'm guessing that was kind of intentional, that there was an altered. Oh, okay. That's the sword that was broken off before, and it is a good idea to not bump it. I'll need to remember that when I paint the hand, because I used contact cement rather than epoxy, because the epoxy um, was really old and yeah, unusable. And I didn't open the new stuff just to do that, so I used contact cement, which is holding it, but I need to remember that it's flexible and that might pose a problem if I bump it too much. Yeah, it's coming along okay. It's I can in person here, the black shows up a lot more than it seems to on my monitor. It's showing exactly how it looks to you or not. There's no way to know. In a mystery, what I do know is that I wasn't able to get the music playing, so I'm going to have to play with that. Not play with it, and find out how to fix it somehow. Figure out how to fix that so that I was watching this bits of a movie. It's kind of a tradition in this house to play movies nonstop, stream them, I guess, that have a Christmas theme of some sort, right? No matter how tenuous the connection to the holiday is, this one was pretty tenuous. This was about, a family that somehow all switched bodies, right? That was probably the name of the movie, Switch, right? Because it's switching. We wouldn't want anybody be confused that it was about something else, because that's what happens. So the mother and the daughter and the father and the son, and for some reason the baby and the dog. Okay. So there are a couple of things about this. One is, I'll get to one definitely later, is that there wasn't any gender switching. So I'm not sure when this movie was done, but if it were done more recently, you might have a gender switch thing going on as well as an age switch. And the makers of this movie, admitted that it was pretty derivative, because that thing happened. I mean, that kind of thing has happened before, the old body switching thing. In fact, I think there was one. I can't remember the name of the movie because I don't think I ever really watched it. There was one that was done much earlier, basically was a gender switch thing. Probably, something in the late 70s, where it was supposedly, some sort of feminist awakening movie or whatever. About what is it like if some guy wakes up and finds out that he's in a woman's body, and what's life going to be like? There's probably some sort of, political statement involved in that movie, but I don't remember because I don't remember really watching it other than knowing that it existed. Anyway, there wasn't any gender switching in this, so you didn't have that, but there was, the old kids didn't get along with their parents, but when they became their parents, then they realized, how much their parents really loved them, and that, their life wasn't as easy as they thought it would be. And then the parents, I don't know if the parents learned anything about the kids' lives except that they screwed it up. Like the girl was a soccer player and the mom wasn't. And so when the mom went out because she was in the girl's body, didn't know how to play soccer and screwed it all up. Anyway, that kind of thing always was going on. Hi. I am finishing up these flying demon things. I'm dry brushing so far with moderate success, meaning I haven't really messed it up. The wings, which I base coated on Friday, and we're dried over the weekend. So I don't know how long the stream is going to go on today because I don't have anything to work on once these are done. Well, that's not exactly true. There's a couple of models that were painted before, some minifigs, but the bases weren't painted. So maybe, they're just left in primer color. Maybe I'll go back and the ones that Nikki did, maybe I'll paint those bases. That might be a post-break kind of thing I can do without messing up too much. It's just paint something brown or gray or whatever, and then put some wash on it. Got a little too much there, but it doesn't look too bad. I think I'll just leave it. So these are coming out okay. They're not great, but they're okay. And after I'm done with the wings, I'm going to paint the horns. The horns are going to be painted just dark gray and with some red tips. So I'm going to paint those, and then I need to paint the hands and the face. And all of that is going to take forever because it's really fine detail, and I have to go very slowly in order to not mess it up. So what you're gonna see today on Relaxing Painting with Dice and Dungeons, except for when I'm painting the bases, which you'll actually see the application of paint. For the most part, you're gonna see me spending a lot of time pretty much just doing tiny little bits of paint that are next to invisible, except when they're done. And well, that probably will use up most of the time, given the pace at which I paint. It's pretty slow. And at some point, I need to get the music running again. Maybe there's this button. There's a button on the Stream Deck that I'm supposed to push. I'll push it and see what happens. The thing is counting. The Stream Deck thinks the music is playing. Razer, which is the software, thinks the music is playing. But the little bar on here that says that the music is actually being streamed isn't moving. So everything's working except it's not working. And I'm not sure what to do about that then. So at some point, maybe, someone can alert our DM who, it might have been one of the updates. There were a bunch of updates that were done the week before last. And now when I booted up, there were another 3 of them that I said, wait until later. We'll do updates later. Maybe it's unhappy about that. Maybe there's maybe Razer is ticked off that I didn't update it. It's like I want to be up to date, and you're prohibiting me from being up to date. So I will not cooperate. Okay, I think that's looking okay. I really like the way the armor turned out. I'm going to have to remember. Hey, UOGem. UOGem, tell people that the music's not playing. By people, I mean someone who maybe can fix it. But yeah, I'm going to have to remember and I did this in the past when I painted Citadel models, Warhammer, the original Warhammer, Orcs and Goblins. Okay. I did a dragon, a metallic green dragon, and they were different. I had a lot of different color washes back then. I only got grays and blacks and sort of a bluish and a greenish mossy one now. But the speed paints work as a wash, and when it's put over the metallic color like chainmail silver or gunmetal or whatever, it keeps the metallic look but with a color. And I'm going to use that more often when I want to do a colored metallic armor. Okay, at some point I need to just stop messing with it. It's getting really close to that point. It's getting really close to the don't do anything more. It will just make it worse. And so, of course, I'm going to do a little bit more. And then And I just really need to stop. Yep. And wash the brush. Made a nice little weird pattern there on the cardboard. Don't think who is going to be on asking for a flip today, because who is on vacation traveling somewhere. And that's okay, because the rest of us have done that. We've had our time away, as you know. So I guess it's fair that who has a chance to be away. I'm putting these back on the sticky tack, despite the fact that it's pretty ineffective, because I need to be able to get to the hands and the face. And not be holding it by the wing or something. So, yeah, well, squeeze that on as hard as I can and see what happens. To get the black paint out of this brush, though, if water isn't getting the pearlescent paint out of the brush very well. And a little bit of isopropyl alcohol, and the black is on the paint brush. Now I'm going to be putting on. I really wish the music would play so I could, because when I'm painting the little tiny details like that, sometimes I just stop babbling, and then there's nothing going on except, but the music is nice when it's playing. Tell you what, before I start painting the hands and face, I'm going to be using this ivory and using this little teeny brush here. Before I start doing that, I'm going to look at the music one more time and see if I can figure out what's happening, because it thinks it's playing. What I could do is I could just push some. I don't know. Is this streaming? Are you seeing the paintings? I don't know what you're seeing. For all I know, you're seeing the control panel thing for the music. I mean, that might be what you're seeing. I don't know. Advanced audio properties is not what I want. I'm not advanced here. In my library search, I could go to the home screen, see what happens there. No, that's not what I wanted. It doesn't let me do anything useful. Invite collaborators to the painting stream. That would be interesting. More options. Download. I don't want to download. Yeah, it thinks it's still playing, but it's not moving. It's not streaming. So I'm going to click on more options. Edit details. Exclude from your taste profile. I don't want to do that. No, I don't see. So I haven't broken it. It's no worse than it was before. Properties. Maybe it's properties. No, Oh, device. Oh, there's all. Oh, it's on default device. I wonder which one I'm supposed to use. There's like 1, 2, 3, 6 options for output. Yeah. Oh, click on that one. See what happens. Nope, that didn't do anything. Let me try Realtek. Nope, that didn't work. Try Razer series, whatever. It's playing. Huh, I'll have to. I'm gonna have to remember which one that was. Let me look at that again. Okay, Razors. It looks like I fixed something. It looks like I fixed it right on the fly while the thing was going on here, and now the music is playing. And if I go silent while I'm trying to paint the hands and face of these little models, you'll be able to hear really nice music. Because you never know. So I'm using ivory paint. I'm supposedly these creatures, whatever they are, and I can't remember. So Nikki or Alexis told me what they were. They have very pale skin, like they're kind of ashen look, not really pale as much as dead, you know. So I'm going to use. I could use really, really white, but that doesn't look very good, even with a wash on it. Oh, but on the other hand, gray wash, that might work. Instead of using ivory with kind of a dark gray wash, I'm going to try the white with just a gray wash. And see how that turns out. This is very, very, oh, I don't know. This might not be a good idea. Yeah, okay, I'm looking at this skull pile that I did a while ago. Okay, I probably can move this down a little bit. So now when I'm going to be painting, yeah, it's always fun to move the camera around on the stream so that if anybody's watching, they can get a little nauseous. Yeah, this is the ivory, this kind of off-white color, and this is the really dead white color, and I think, yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to use the dead white with a gray wash, and it might work. And if it doesn't, oh well, you know, sometimes things do, sometimes they don't. So this is going to take a while for me to do, because when I'm painting detail like this, it goes very, very slowly, because I have to keep my hands steady and the object I'm painting steady and try to focus through these little 2x focus things. So let's put these on, squeeze out some very white paint. Maybe I'll move this over so you can actually see paint. Here's the paint. That's the pearlescent paint I used before. It's very hard to get a small drop of that out. Yeah, let's see. Camera. I find some spots on the cardboard. This is on camera, so if I keep the work there, it might be okay. Well, let's get to it. a little bit translucent. But look at that. There's to touch an already painted surface already. Just have to touch that with a little bit of red paint. This is not working, so we'll just have to try to hold it steady with one hand and hold the brush steady with the other hand. Paint. This is the kind of paint that dries quickly on the tip of the brush. So, bristles. Paint extension. Yuck. This is one of those, yeah, good luck to you, you can't get there from here kind of painting situations. So this white paint, it doesn't necessarily cover very well, which in most circumstances is a problem. But since I'm painting over gray primer, it might just be exactly the right thing. That the gray will show through a little bit. Depth of field issue going on here with these. They're focusing on the wingtip. That it tries on the brush. And as promised, I started going quiet here because to get the paint where I want it. Two hands need to remain steady at the same time. wash on it. It might end up looking okay. I'm going to have to get tiny little dots of the red speed paint to cover up some of the little dots of minuscule little dots of white that got onto spots where it's supposed to stay red. The dogs is having fun barking at something. There's a little filter on these microphones that may or may not be filtering out things like the little pump. It's not really a sump pump, it's a condensate for the humidifier. It runs every once in a while. You might hear that. You might hear the dog barking. The dog is having a very fun time barking right now. I'm not sure why, but he's going at it. So I think this really white is going to work okay. Instead of the dark gray wash, I'm just going to use the light gray wash. And that might be enough, to tone down the white just a little bit. Make it look a little ashen. Pick up the details like the fingers and the eyes and the mouth. That kind of thing. Anyway, yeah, I was talking about this movie that for some reason we were watching because it sort of had to do with Christmas a little bit. People got switched in bodies. The father became the son and the son became the father. And they all learned about each other and came to appreciate. The kids learned to appreciate the parents, and the parents learned to appreciate the children because, you couldn't do that unless you became the other one. I guess everybody just needs to switch with their parents or kids in order to, really appreciate and understand. But we can't do that except in kind of mediocre movies like that one. So, so they had a, great time doing that. Having the baby switch with the dog, that was kind of funny. Okay, and they played up the comic aspect of it pretty well, but because the whole thing was about, teenagers reconciling with their parents and vice versa, the baby dog thing just turned into comic relief. And so essentially what happened was they all just abandoned the baby and the dog to this guy down the street. I don't even know if they knew this guy very well. Just like, okay, you be a baby dog sitter. And then there were some, little comic bits about that, about, the CGI baby would go bouncing around the apartment, and the dog would sit on the potty chair, that kind of thing. But for the most part, it was like, I don't know, it's like, why did you do this? You left your little kid, probably like 2 years old or something, maybe not even that old, with this guy down the street. basically knew how to train dogs. He had 3 poodles. They were very nice poodles. There probably was just one, because they were identical and their poses were identical. There's probably just one poodle, and they used the magic of computing power to make it look like there were 3. But it was actually kind of, a little bit weird and disturbing how they abandoned their baby, because they had to play up the soccer game and the interview for Yale and walking down the hallway in the high school and the failed presentation that the daughter had to give for an architectural thing that her mother had done. So a baby running around like a dog and the dog acting like a kid, kind of funny, but turned out to be pretty irrelevant to the rest of the film. So, what could they do other than just abandon the baby? They went off doing all their other stuff. And that's what they did. Yeah, and the whole... There's a little side plot about how the planets were aligned and some telescope malfunctioned or something or other. Made the switch all happen, but it kind of came back around to that, but it wasn't a major plot point as it turned out. Anyway, yeah, so everything turned out to be wonderful, and the son didn't go to Yale, but found out that there was a girl down the block who really liked him, and that was important, and the daughter got to go to soccer national camp tryouts, and the mother got her architectural contract. I don't know, the dad got kind of left out. That, well, whatever. Dad, nothing really good happened for him. He lost his he had this incredibly expensive first edition holographic Charizard car, and he ended up losing that because he used that to trade for a lens that had to be replaced on the telescope, but it didn't really have to be replaced anyway because the baby had it. And if he'd known that, he could have at least kept his Charizard card. But the poor dad really got screwed in this film, when you think about it. He didn't go to national camp, and he didn't get a new girlfriend, and he didn't get a super contract to build a park or whatever it was they were parking, and he lost his Charizard card. Oh, even worse than that, he had this Camaro for some reason. Why not, Vintage Camaro, and they destroyed it in the course of the film. Yeah, so great. I have to think about that. The dad really got screwed. He lost his Charizard card, he lost his Camaro. Everybody around him was getting good stuff. It was really unfair. Well, yeah, so that's another aspect of that film. But, it is what it is. But the thing, though, that, so you have to have your suspension of disbelief, right? In order to believe that everybody could switch bodies. And fine, so you do that, and somehow or other the planets got misaligned or realigned or de-aligned, and the telescope sent some sort of bolt of energy and transformed them all, including the baby that was essentially abandoned to the guy down the block. Okay, you suspend your disbelief, and all of that happens. But the thing that was least believable, the least believable thing in this whole to-do was at the very end, the scout for the national youth soccer team. Okay. Shows up on their doorstep. Says, "What are you doing here?" "Well, my flight got delayed because of the snowstorm." And there were like 6 flakes in the air. Okay. And you go, no. Not even in Atlanta or Los Angeles or something. With this tiny little bit of snow, this infinitesimal little bit of drizzly little drops of flakes delay a flight. And that was just really lame. Why did they even say that? It was totally unbelievable. Like I said, I mean, sure, suspend disbelief that all these people could switch bodies and whatever. But no, there's no way that little bit of snow was going to delay or cancel a flight. Nope. No matter how much people in airports, think that would happen, that was not enough. Well, anyway, you know how these films go. They get the telescope fixed. The guy loses his Charizard card. Wow, that was bad. I got white paint all over the inside of the elbow here. Okay. That isn't enough to put everybody back. So you know how those films go. It's like, you're going to have to live in somebody else's body forever. But then they fall asleep on Christmas Eve and they wake up and everything's fine. Whatever. There's hardly any snow on the ground. But the flights were delayed. But you have to have the happy ending. Because, no matter how much fun it might have been with the baby and the dog switching places, I mean, that could have been a lot of fun for a long time. No matter how much that could have been a fun thing, they all get back to normal. Except now that they all liked each other because they all learned about each other and how much they really cared for each other, even though that didn't show all the time. And it was one of those things. But the poor dad lost his Charizard card and his Camaro. Yeah, I really don't see what he got out of that. Yeah, he got along better with his son. Okay, so that's white paint on the hands and face. And I don't see too terribly many places where there's a problem. I'm going to let that dry and put a base coat on the horns. Those are going to be painted this dark gray. paint the tips of these red later, but for now, I'm just painting them dark gray. It's really close to the primer color, but it darkens as it dries. I don't want them to be pure black. Maybe I'm wrong. Let's see how this looks when it dries, but I may end up having to paint them black anyway. Because I'm just, the way I'm looking at them here, they're just not dark enough for the rest of the model. I thought this color would work, but it's just not. So I'm not even going to bother painting the other one gray. I'm going to just go to the black on that one and then come back and paint this one later. I guess I want to paint the boots and the sword hilts. I'm going to do that now. Because I might have to retouch the white on the hands after I paint the sword hilts. In which case, I want to do that before I put the wash on it. So I'm going to do the hilts and the boots. Yeah, and that's going to be... Again, there's no way to hold them. Do something to hold up the boots off of the surface until the paint dries. Maybe I'll just paint those first so that they kind of dry. Okay, yeah, just keep trying to break that sword. It's like the third time I banged into it. Anyway, yeah, that's the story of that movie. It was, it was okay. It was kind of, pretty formulaic and predictable for the most part. But, it was one of those feel-good movies where the family all got together and they learned to like each other. Because, and then it was this, the weird catalyst, for some reason, was this woman driving around in a highly decorated fortune-telling van. And she just kept saying, fix the problem, fix what's broken. They didn't know what she was talking about, but we all knew in the audience that she was talking about the relationships in the family, and everything would be fine if they would just fix what's broken, which is why when they all fell asleep on Christmas Eve, after learning about each other's, how much they really cared about each other, even though they didn't think so, and act that way and understand each other's lives. And that's how they all came back together, because they fixed what was broken, which was their relationships within the family. I don't know, the fortune-telling woman, I don't know, it's kind of like the baby and the dog thing, it was like, oh, you put that in, why? Oh, I don't know, why not? It was kind of fun and clever, but it didn't really fit with the rest of the movie, but there it was. Okay, so now the sword hilt. It's barely hanging on, glued on the sword thing. The contact cement continues to stay in contact here. It hasn't broken off yet, despite the bouncing. So that's a good thing. Okay, well, there was that. So that filled some time. But yeah, I mean, it was kind of a fun movie. You know, and your suspension of disbelief was necessary during all of it, but got to the end, and the scout for the national football team, because I guess they called it soccer in the movie, but nobody who'd actually be playing it at that level would call it soccer. Yeah, he shows up and says, "My flight was delayed because of the storm." You know, there's like 6 little flakes of snow. That just said this movie is bogus. They're asking us to believe. I mean, it's one thing to ask us to believe that a baby and a dog would switch bodies, but it's another thing to believe that little bit of snow would delay the flights. Really not believable. Good. I've got paint all over my fingers because I touched the bottom of the foot here. Sorry. I didn't touch the bottom of the foot, I grabbed the foot. What the heck? What is that about? There's so much paint not on this boot, but apparently on my finger. I wonder where it's going. Where it went. It's weird. You got the sword hilt. Oh, I missed it. Okay, I'm gonna have to get some white paint out again. I wonder if there's any. That's still wet. I missed her thumb. Yeah, that's better. This isn't going all that well. It's like the easiest thing in the world is to paint these boots. And they're going very poorly. The other one goes. So, that do not be touching there. That'll work. Okay, let's paint. Let me paint the sword hilt first. The sword isn't broken. There's a string sort of thing here. Gonna catch the paint and be a problem. Okay, paint the sword hilt. And then paint the boots. And then I need to remember to go back and paint the horns black. Because I tried gray and gray didn't work. I decided I'm going to paint the blade of the sword copper and do a red highlight on it. And I think that'll look pretty cool. And if it doesn't, well, then it won't look cool. Then it'll just look not cool. Yep, almost forgot to paint the boots. I mean, that would have been dumb. These are the boots getting painted. Those spent a lot of time buried deep in the sticky tack. They're probably all stinky now. Yeah, got all sweaty there in the sticky tack and couldn't get them clean. got to worry about foot odor on your flying demon model things, right? Maybe that's part of their thing. You know, they kind of screaming at you, and then they take their boots off. And they get up to you and you go, oh, I give up. Your demonness has overwhelmed me. Okay, I think that they're painted. Toe here. Another one of those that needs to be up off the ground kind of situations while it dries. Okay, what's it going here? Oh, hi. Thanks for joining in. I wasn't looking at the chat screen because I was, painting. Trying to focus on painting. So thanks for joining in. Really appreciate it. Great. Well, since you are first-time chat, and I am now waiting for paint to dry, that's one of the features of relaxing painting with Dice and Dungeons is waiting for paint to dry. Let me do my little spiel about what Dice and Dungeons is all about and why there is relaxing painting 3 times a week, more or less. It's just a good time to do that when I'm waiting for some of the paint to dry. Dice and Dungeons is families and friends that got together to play Dungeons and Dragons, and that continues to be what we're really about. Is we've got an amazing Dungeons and Dragons campaign that streams 3 Sundays a month with live chat on Twitch, and the episodes later play on YouTube and as podcasts. No, you are not slow compared to me. I will match my slowness. I will match my slowness with anybody. I can at least blame my age. I can say that I go slowly because I do everything slowly nowadays. But part of it is that I'm not really very good at it, especially doing things like dry brushing and highlighting and detailing and stuff. And so part of it is that just takes a long time. So I get to talk about it a lot before I actually do it. But our D&D campaign, and we have these amazing dungeon tiles that I'm going to show everybody in just a little bit, that we started producing on the 3D printers back there. Yeah, please do. We have like almost 100 episodes, I think, up already. So you might want to, go back, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8, just to kind of catch up on what's happening with the story. But if you really like it and you want to, get into some of the character development and backstories and in-jokes and things that kind of happen, you can just listen to those. But we're really pretty good at it. I mean, it's not just like we're playing D&D, but we're actually trying to produce a D&D show. And I think we're pretty successful. So there's stuff going on all the time. There aren't any dead spots. And if there are, there's this wonderful music that plays in the background. But we started producing dungeon tiles because we wanted to put on a show. And they're done on the 3D printers back there, and we painted them for the show, right? And so our DM said, well, why don't you stream the painting? And I says, that sounds pretty dumb, but there it is. That's what we're doing. So this is an example of our dungeon tiles. These are printed. This is painted but not washed, so it's kind of flat. We put a dark gray wash on it. I'll show you an example in a little bit that brings it to life. But they're 3D printed, and then they're primed, and then they're base coated, and then they're accented, and then washed. But the real feat, and it's just one piece, so these are really solid. Okay, you can't break them. But the really cool thing is that under this plate, there are ball magnets in the corners, and so they stick to each other. They don't stick to a surface, they stick to each other. And so it's really easy to pull them apart and rearrange them in lots of different ways. And so we can build, once you get enough of these, and there's corners and rounded corners and other cool features. These are just plain walls, okay, with floors. But yeah, all sorts of features that you can do, and we featured these when we have battles. Aren't these amazing? Yeah. Every once in a while, we talk about maybe people would be interested in buying something like this. I don't know. What do you think? And we could produce them like unpainted, or if somebody really wanted to pay a huge amount of money, they could watch us paint their own set right on the show. Anyway, that's how this relaxing painting happened, is that we started streaming these. These are my favorites here. This is a cut stone one, so you can see the difference between that. And some of them have features on them, like this has a sigil that's printed on it and then hand painted as a fire sigil. And this is part of a set. Hi, old Brogger. Thanks for joining in. Yeah, you get to see the almost conclusion of the demon models pretty soon. I'm waiting for paint to dry right now, so I'm doing a little promo for our dungeon tiles. Anyway, this is part of a set where there's a cauldron in the middle, and the cauldron has a magnet in it, and there's a flame that has a magnet in it, and then the flame goes into the cauldron when the fire mage says flame on, or explode, or burn, or whatever, and you can put the flame in. And so when you're doing your show, when we're doing our show, or you're doing your D&D campaign, you can make it be interactive like that. But these are our wooden ones. They're not made out of wood. They're made to look like wood. And I'm really thrilled with the color combination. There's a nice brown base coat. Yeah, isn't it pretty? Yeah, you really need... I think our smallest set is like 30 walls and floors, something like that. But if you really want to make a really nice encounter, like a dungeon that you walk through and with traps in it, we have trap tiles, which are really cool, where there's a little, like a flame will come out of a wall. Yeah, so we played with like 6 different combinations of base coat and wash, and came up with this one, and it looks really good. And the print is nice because it has really deep wood grain in it. So we decided to paint instead of plain walls, they're stucco walls. They take a little while to paint, because you have to put a base coat on and then a wash and then paint the stucco. And you can see they're both front and back, which is really cool, because if you build a dungeon and you're in the building, you can also be outside the building. And we have operating doors. These are pin hinge doors. So if you're walking, if you're in the warehouse and you're exploring, you can like pick the lock, right? You can pick the lock, and you can put your minifig here. You put your minifig here and open the door so that you're hiding behind the door. Yeah, I mean, the 3D printing is, the 3D printing, the time for the printing and the painting. But they wouldn't be terribly pricey if they weren't painted. Like if someone wanted to do their own painting, I don't think they'd be terribly pricey to just sell them just the black PLA. We talked about maybe priming them, but priming them is a real pain. It just really is. But the painting, anyway, we started doing the painting on stream, and that's how relaxing painting with Dice and Dungeons started, was with sets like these. Anyway, we're thinking about it, because they're really nice tiles. And if you have a bunch of them, and there's plain wood, plain floors too, so that, if they were like this, you'd have tiles in between, and it would just be an open area. And we got all sorts of weird little scatter pieces. We've got, desks and chairs and beds and... Yeah, we tried it, with the primer. I just have to say that we got less and less sophisticated all the time as we had more and more tiles. It was like, well, we'd buy the spray-on primer from the model paint companies, and then we said that's really expensive, and then we just got a bottle of primer and an upgraded airbrush, and that was just really messy and difficult. So what we've been doing lately is we're just using Rust-Oleum, and it seems to work really well. Like these guys, the minifigs I've been painting for the last, all of these, like even these little imps and stuff. The minifigs I've been painting for the last many months, just been using that. And there's a kind that adheres to plastic, and it seems to work really well. So yeah, priming them that way, and like I said, it seems to be working fine. The paint adheres to it really pretty well. It doesn't mask any of the detail. So yeah, that's kind of what I've ended up doing is using inexpensive primer. You get like 10 times as much for a third the price, and it seems to work just as well, at least what we're working on so far. Oh, how's this going here? I guess, yeah, that's dried. What I've got to do yet, there's a little more detail, is I need to paint the horns black, and once that's dried, I'm going to give them some red tips. I need to put a gray wash on the face and the hands, the sword blades, of course, and I'm going to highlight the edges with some red. I've given up on the sticky tack holder at this point. I'm getting, my fingers on the model, but it just the way these things are set up, it wasn't working. Yeah, so I guess the next thing is to paint the horns black. This is called... Yeah, we play, when we do boss fights and things, we used to have these two-dimensional things. I don't know, they're called flats. I don't know, there's a name for them. And they worked pretty well. We played with those for a while, but then we started printing. We got a rosin printer and started printing our real minis, and so our adversaries are now minis, and our characters have minis. And so when we do a stream of a combat, our characters are there and our adversaries are there, and it really makes for a much better show. It's really kind of fun. And haven't done too much terrain. We've done sewers. We have some really cool sewer tiles. Those take a while to paint because there's like 6 layers. There's a gray base coat, and then a green mossy coat, and then a black slime coat, and then an epoxy drizzle down the middle for the water that's running through it, and then kind of a wash on the gray to make it look dark. So that was those are pretty cool. We started over there to my left. There are about 50 street tiles, and because like these are painted both on the inside, right? So that you can be inside the warehouse or the tavern or the store or whatever. You can also be outside. because those are painted as well. And if we put street tiles here, with cobblestone streets, basically, we could have combat in the streets, not just in the building. So you could start with a brawl in the street and work its way into the tavern, or you could start in the tavern, right? Have a brawl that spills out into the street. We've done trees, tents, campfires, bedrolls, all sorts of stuff. Most of our combat lately has been in sewers, so there's that. I don't know, for some reason our DM likes to have us wander around in sewers. I'm looking forward to just going to a tavern sometime and not be sloshing around in slime. Yes, exactly that. We tried printing trees and it just didn't work at all. And that's a piece of advice you need to give everybody, is that when you're doing like outdoor stuff, shrubbery and trees, if you get the right scale, the model railroading stuff is really pretty cool. There's a lot of things that you can get that look really good. So thanks for mentioning that. It really is. It's a really good way to go for that kind of thing. Whether buildings are okay too, but you can't go into them. Okay, so it doesn't substitute for dungeon tiles when you want to be in a dungeon or a tavern or a warehouse or a castle or whatever it is that you're wandering about in. But for terrain, yeah, model railroading is really good. Yeah, this other thing we found from model railroading. Oh, okay. It made puffs or tufts or something too. I really admire Obrager, how you've taken on the task of I can buy these things like a shrubbery or a tree, but I want to see what it's like to make my own. And then you do, and they come out really nice. You do an amazing job of doing that. I've seen a couple of your YouTubes where you've done that. If people who are watching this really encourage you to check out Old Braggers, because he's really good at terrain and model making in let's just say really practical, inexpensive ways. Things that you might want to be able to even try on your own. Yeah, black is way better than the than the than the gray I tried initially. These horns. I want to be away from chat as I try to get this done here. Having old eyes really kind of sucks. I'm stuck with trifocals. And those I'm finding work very poorly. Okay. Because it's just like finding the right spot. And that's why people who are old do this, because they're trying to find the right spot in their bifocal, trifocal things to focus at the distance they're looking. I'm really badly nearsighted, so I can see clearly for about 8 or 9 inches, and then everything gets fuzzy after that. And so I find that I have to take my glasses off. You'll see me do that all the time when I'm working, when I'm painting, because the bifocal, trifocal things just don't focus close up. Just like, I mean, they're made for reading, so I'd have to end up looking like this. It doesn't work at all. But the other thing is, because I'm so nearsighted, even with the supersized font on the secondary chat screen that was put together for me, even with the supersized font, I have trouble reading it without my glasses on. So every once in a while, I will pause relaxing painting and put my glasses on so I can look up at chat and see what's going on there. So I don't mean to ignore you. It's just that I can see you're typing stuff, but I can't necessarily read it very well. But I will as soon as I finish painting these horns. Wow. This black paint has got all sorts of grit in it. I'm going to, it's not too bad here, but if this were a larger surface, it would be really a mess. Okay, I'm going to clean this brush, and then I have to clean the bottle top, because it's just getting into the paint. So I'm going to take these off a sec. I'm going to put these on so I can read the chat screen. Yeah. I think I'm way past a -4. But really, they'll pay for your LASIK or whatever it is that they use there. Why did I lose this again? How many times have I said on this stream, always put the little plastic tube in a place where you can find it, and I don't. Okay, what I'm going to do now, this is always a little bit risky, is on this Tamiya bottles, see, the paint gets into the cap, right? And then when the cap goes on, it gets onto the rim, and when it gets onto the rim, it just makes a mess. So every once in a while, farm animals, we have printed a lot of animals and painted them. I've always kind of enjoyed painting them, but yeah, it makes sense that you would have, you probably wouldn't have like monsters and demons and imps and centaurs and stuff at your railroad modeling store, but you would have cows and pigs and chickens and things. That makes sense to look there for those kind of things. We've had some pretty good horses that we printed and painted. It's been kind of fun painting the horses, like trying to do them like an Appaloosa and stuff like that, so they're not just all just brown or gray. So that's been kind of fun. But yeah, a lot of people who play D&D, well, the sales tax is high. Our income tax used to be that high in the States, but tax cuts almost always happen at the top tax bracket. So I think our top now is 35%, so it's still pretty high. but our sales tax is usually only between 6 and 8%. Except in some cities. So the bigger cities will add city tax. So I think in Chicago, for example, I think sometimes the sales tax will go up to like 15 to 16%. But compared to paying for medical care here, ongoing taxes probably aren't worth it. I'll just say that. I would just say that I would like to be in a country where you don't go bankrupt because of your health care. And that does happen in the States. That's one of the, believe it or not, that's one of the leading causes of personal bankruptcy in America, the U.S., I should say, not the entire continent. Okay, in the U.S. is medical expenses. People in Europe find that hard to believe. Yeah, and prenatal and natal care, just it's amazing in Europe compared to here. Okay. Well, this is getting close to being done. Let me just talk. I need to put a gray wash on the hands and the face. I need to put a red highlight on the tips of the horns. And then paint the sword blades copper. And then put a red highlight on those. And then I'm going to paint these bases. So yeah, that's really true. Yeah, in the States, I was saying that the leading cause of personal bankruptcy in the United States are medical expenses. If you don't have insurance, and it's quite possible, especially if you're poor, I mean, it goes the wrong way. Poor people don't, in some places, don't have access to health insurance at all. In some states, it varies a lot from state to state, that you can rack up like $300,000 or $400,000 of medical expenses because our costs here are really high. So yeah, that can happen. Nope, don't come back in 20 to 30 minutes. Come back in 45 minutes because I'm going to be taking a break pretty soon, and I'll be back at about 12:30 Eastern time here. So thanks for dropping in, old Brogger. I really appreciate it. And I see that you and Crafty had a really good conversation. So yeah, I'm going to do a couple more things. I'm going to start my break a little bit early because thanks for the follow. I appreciate it so much. Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, 10 until 2 with a long break in between. I'm going to do a couple more little things. I'm going to paint the swords so that those dry. And then I'm probably going to start my break a little bit early and maybe end it early or not. Yeah, I usually end up saying my break will be a half hour, and it's always longer because being old, I find a reason. But sword blades, this copper color is pretty nice. And I decided, since these are kind of demons, instead of just having a dark steel blade, I'm going to paint it copper and then make an effort to just touch the edges of the blades with the red speed paint, the same thing I used on the armor, just to give it just tiny little bit around the edges. See how that works. And then I'm going to put red tips, a little bit of red tip, I think, on the horns. And if it doesn't turn out okay, I'll just repaint them black. So we'll see how this goes and what time it is. I might try the red tips. Yeah, I'm going to. Yep, I talked myself into it. I'm going to put the red tips on the horns before break, because if it doesn't turn out, then it will dry during break, and I'll be able to repaint it or paint over it again. So glasses are coming off so that I can see what I am doing at this distance. Crafty, just so you know, on Wednesdays are now Submarine Wednesdays, because Wednesdays I work on not D&D, but models like the ones I used to build when I was a kid. And the one I've been working on now, which seems like for years, I like to joke, but I think it's no longer being a joke, that building the model is taking longer than it took to build the original submarine. That might actually be true. I have this Renwall cutaway model. It's a model of the original Polaris nuclear missile launching submarine prototype, the George Washington. I built it when I was like in 7th or 8th grade or something, when it first came out. But I've been doing it in way more detail and much more carefully than I did when I was a kid. So it's been taking a long time. So on Wednesday, I'll be coming back to that. It's, I don't know. It could be a really good episode on Wednesday, because I am finally getting the missile tubes. There are 16 missile tubes painted. I'm spray painting those yellow. So I'm doing that off screen, off show, because it's in the garage, so that the vapors don't kill the family. I'm going to be trying to assemble the missile room, and it will. Well, the story is, I wasn't really planning on it, is that about a year ago, I ran out of things to paint. I didn't have any minifigs or dungeon tiles, and I was supposed to do a painting stream. And so our DM said, well, why don't you do one of these models that you bought when you first retired like 6 years ago and haven't done any, and just pull one out and start that. I said, why would anybody want to watch that? And the answer was probably not, but the stream must go on, so pull one out and start working on it. So the first one I did was a Ed Big Daddy Roth pink. Look it up. Most people don't know what that is anymore anyway. Back in the 60s and 70s. Oh, okay. Oh, Reapers. Yeah. Well, I've got, so when I retired, I thought, well, I'm going to be bored, right? I'm going to have all this time on my hand because I'm not going to be commuting and working 9-hour, 10-hour days and all of that, plus the commute and everything. So what am I going to do with my time? I thought, well, I'd revert to my childhood and start building models. So I bought like 25 models, mainly World War II airplanes and some Star Trek things, and a few interesting things. Other than that, I have a 57 Corvette model. And anyway, they all sat on a shelf. Because for some reason, I ended up having a whole lot less time. I don't know why, but I ended up having less time retired than I did not retired, and I hadn't built any. Anyway, so it was one Wednesday. I didn't have any minifigs to paint, and it was, well, pull out a model. So I actually pulled out an old Fink model, a Fink Eliminator. And that didn't attract very much attention. because no one remembers those models. No one remembers the Big Daddy Roth, who made his name doing hot rods, basically. But then he created Ratfink and Ratfink spin-offs. And just about the time I retired, they did a reissue of all of them. So, of course, I bought them all because when I was a kid, I built them all. They were the best quality models I actually ever did, seriously, because I spent a lot of time. I mixed my own paint colors to match the box tops, and I filled in the seams, because the parts didn't always fit together very well, so I filled in the seams. Yeah. Anyway, I pulled one of those out. It didn't go over really well, but I finished it, and then I said, what should I do next? Because it became kind of a standard thing to work on those on Wednesdays. So I started working on this Renwall submarine, and it's just been taking forever. It's a real challenging kit. So if you join in on Wednesday, you'll actually be able to see quite a lot of the model, because I'm going to be trying to assemble the missile compartment, which is right in the center of the submarine. So Wednesday's viewers will have an opportunity to see what has been done so far and whether or not it's possible to get this thing to work. It's hard to describe. There's 16 missile tubes. They all need to set nicely on the bottom of one of the decks, go through a bunch of holes in the deck above it without scraping the paint off, get all aligned, and then be slid into the hull. And if it works, it will be amazing. They will look really cool. And if it doesn't work, then I will be tempted to use foul language. So it could be a pretty exciting Submarine Wednesday. And then the rest of the submarine model doesn't look like it's going to be terribly challenging. It's just a bunch of little detail painting. A lot of it kind of monochromatic. If I can find the parts, and if the parts all fit. I say finding the parts because I actually ended up buying three models in order to get enough parts to make one, because I'm building the originals. These are kits from the 60s. Anyway, I think that turned out okay. The little red tips on the horns. I don't know if it shows up on the screen. I think it actually shows up on my monitor better than under real light. So what I've got left to do is wash the face and the hands. I'm going to use the gray wash on that, and then highlight the edges of the sword, and then paint the bases, and these guys will be done. But first, this old guy does need to take a break, and so this is a pretty good time to do that. I will try to be back by about 12:30. So if you want to take a break yourself or do something else, if you can pop back in, you can watch these guys getting finished. And maybe I'll talk more about Dungeons and Dragons, or maybe I'll talk about 1960s television. I don't know. Could go on, maybe, talk about Gilligan's Island. I haven't talked about that. Anyway, thanks so far. A little bit of a break time. I should be back, probably about 12:30, and hope you can rejoin them. See you in a bit. Break's over. Yeah, only 4 minutes late. That's not too bad for me anyway. Yeah, these things are getting really close to being finished. I'm going to put gray wash on the face and hands. And then I'm going to highlight the edges of the swords. That'll be that. And then paint the bases black because why not? And that shouldn't take too terribly long. And then following that, it looks like the only thing that's left is I'll show you this. Nikki did this before, some wyvern sort of thing, but the base isn't painted. So maybe what I will do is, doesn't look bad with the gray base. Maybe I'll just leave that alone. What about this one? This one, I'm going to paint the base on this one. This is rocky. So I'm going to paint it gray and put a black wash on it. Nikki did this too. It's a hideous monster sort of thing. She does a really good job with the detail, don't you think? Amazing job with the detail and the shading. I'm just really always impressed by her work because she's an artist and I'm not. And let's see, there's this one too. She did this one. This one, I think this one would look better if the base was painted also. So this one's going to be gray. This one I might do, I don't know. You'll see. Just, to fill some time in near the end of the stream. And then, depending on how things go, I might just even end early. So I'm going to get this brush. Trying to find a brush that's a little bit broad at the tip, but not all splayed out. Yeah, I'll try one of these. So I hope people are back from the break. If not, thanks for joining in before the break. Really appreciate that. And let's get the wash out. This is gray. The pigment in these washes settles out really significantly, so they need a lot of stirring, especially this one. To give this a good amount of vibrating there. And then I might even let it evaporate a little bit so that the concentration of pigment goes up a little. This gray doesn't have much pigment in it. Well, I shouldn't have these here. They are placed in a place where I'm almost certain to knock them over. But I can reach over and grab them a little bit later if I decide to work on the bases. Yeah, so I'll get this done, work on those bases, do the base on the multi-headed creature thing. Squeeze out more. And then, I don't know, might end up early. I'm not sure. Sometimes it just ends early. Oh, okay. I see a spot that needs some touching. Trying to pool what pigment there is in this stuff into the eyes and the mouth. I'm going to let that set in the well just a bit. What I want to have done, so I'm going to actually tilt it a little bit. I want the pigment that's in it to run over to one side so that there's more pigment in it than there is usually. This, I saw a spot. Is it that? Silver spots that needed the red touching up with the red, but now I don't see it now. So I'm not really sure what's up. Like I missed something when I was putting the red speed paint on it. Oh, okay. That was just dust. Thought there was a whole big paint flaw there, but it wasn't. Yeah, so I'm trying to get a little more pigment. I really want to avoid using the dark gray wash. Because it's just going to it'll make everything really dark. And what I want is just a slight pigmentation to make it look kind of ashen and to pick up some of the detail of like the fingers and the eyes and things. So I think the way this will work is I'm just going to keep dabbing this on. Do multiple coats, kind of. See if I get the look I want. That's not bad. It's not too bad. It'll be something to do. Just kind of wait a little while, and then put a little bit more on until it builds up, kind of building up lightly pigmented wash as opposed to dumping a whole lot of really dark wash on it. Wishing I hadn't, right? The left eye keep piling up and the right eye doesn't. I think it's, you can't see what it used to look like before the wash went on because, that train's left the station, so to speak. But I think this is coming out. I think this is coming out okay this way. Pick up more pigment in the brush. It's definitely toning down the blazing white, adding kind of an ashen color, and it is picking up the detail of the fingers and face. So it's accomplishing what it's supposed to accomplish. Just give it one more go around. Give it one more go around because there's a little bit left here in the well. So I'm going to use it to opportunity to kind of ashen the flesh color here. It will have used it up, and I will take that as a sign that it's telling me that it's done. Okay, that's telling me it's done, so it's done. Yeah. Then I'm going to get the speed paint out. And all I want to do with this tiny drop and get a little, almost a dry brush with it. That's almost what I'm trying to do. So let me see if I can. So I want to take this and just run it along the edge of the blade. Get a lot on it, but I just want to give the blade a little bit of a two-tone look. Just on the edge of it. And this will give me an opportunity then to give one more look around, especially on the armor, to make sure I didn't miss any spots that should be red. Like maybe there. Just redden things up. Okay, that is done. Okay. I am declaring these winged flying demon things that have a name that I can't remember finished. Will then going to then paint the bases. So yeah, alcohol in this just to make sure it's clean. Actually going to switch the order a little bit. There's this giant ogreish kind of thing, and the base needs to be painted. And I'm going to do this first, okay? Because I want the paint to dry so I could do a wash on it. These guys aren't going to get washed. They're just going to be black. But this is going to be gray. Paint it pretty dark. What I might do is I might use the light gray. I might use the light gray and then put a heavy wash on it. I would do that if I could find it. There it is. Neutral gray. Because I want the cragginess of the stone to really show. So I'm going to do that. This is too big and heavy to put on the sticky tack holders. I hope the music is playing because, no. Is it not? It didn't start again. Huh. What's up with that? I should have looked up before I really got going here. Yeah, the music turned off. There we go. So this whole time there hadn't been music after the break. So I need to remember to check on some of these things and not take it for granted that they are okay. I'm going to have to hold this while I'm painting it, which I will do. But I know this will look better with the base completed, so I will do that. I'm using a moderately sized brush to get around the feet, and then I will use a much larger brush to fill it all in. There's a lot of surface area and it's got a lot of texture, so it's the kind of thing that calls for a large brush with a lot of paint on it, which makes it a little bit challenging later to clean it, but yeah, I've always succeeded in doing that. The edges around the feet first, and then we're going to use the smaller brush under here. There's a part of the rags that it's wearing come down close to the surface. And I don't really need to get gray paint all over that. It's a matter of needing. It's a matter of not wanting to. Those weird phrases where the words don't really mean exact, I don't know, phrases are like that. If you start taking them literally, they stop making any sense at all. Now, if you were to watch our D&D campaign, my character, also Ralph, a furball fighter, part of its character, part of its idiom, is taking things literally and trying to use that as a way of being humorous. Sometimes works, but you should do that. You should catch out our D&D campaign, which streams on Twitch 3 Sundays a month at 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Daylight savings time having it been ended, so now it's standard time with live chat. And if you can't catch it, then they all show up on YouTube, all of our episodes, and also as a podcast. So you can, as our DM likes to say, ear watch our campaign. I would just say you can listen to it on a podcast. And so far, well, I almost, but didn't quite get my thumb deep into that paint. This is not one I did. This is a miniature, a very large miniature. It's a gigantic miniature that Nicole painted some time ago. But the base never got done. And so since I still have time left on this stream, and I didn't want to end real early, but just probably slightly early, I said to myself, find something else to do, and I found this and said, well, the base isn't done, so let me do that. So that is what I am doing. I'm painting it neutral gray, which is a pretty bland blah gray color, but I'm going to give it a heavy wash with a dark gray wash, and the stone texture will come alive and it will look really good. And at least that's what I'm planning, for it to look really good. Now I get to use a bigger brush and work the paint into all these nooks and crannies. Paint quickly, and then as this is drying, because I want it doesn't have to be completely dry before washing, because it's okay if the wash kind of blends into the base coat a little bit. That actually is fine, but I want it mostly dry because I don't want it just to be a mess. So while this is drying, and we all get to watch paint dry, yay! A recurring thing on relaxing painting is watching paint dry. While we watch this paint dry, I'm going to paint the bases for the flying demon things that I just finished a little while ago. And then come back and wash this. Put wash on it, it's called, as opposed to I'm not washing it like with detergent and cleaning it up. But that would be taking it literally. One meaning of the word anyway, because in English all these words have different meanings, and you have to know what the context is, and outside of the context they don't make any sense. And then sometimes it's fun to take it out of context and take it literally in a different meaning, and then everybody gets upset with you because you're messing around with words and that isn't what they meant, and they're trying to communicate, and you're messing around with the communication in a way that you think is humorous but nobody else does. That never happens, right? But yeah, so there's that. Anyway, this is going to be a really boring, plain old gray kind of look until the wash gets on it. But because there's so much surface texture on the rockiness of this base, when I put a heavy wash on it, it'll all kind of flow down. It's almost like a speed paint kind of thing. It'll flow down into the nooks and crannies and crevices, and it will then hopefully look pretty nice. But there's gray. Let me try to get the paint out of this brush, because I want to use it with the black on the other bases, these things. because I'm painting black, it doesn't have to all come out, but yeah. Clean brush works better than a dirty brush. All right. Here. The next thing, as I continue to get things sort of out of the way, is, well, let's just say, I think the game color black is supposed to be the glossy one. Very nice matte. This is supposed to be glossy, and as with many glossy paints, it doesn't always cover all that well. But I need to make sure that the pigment is well stirred. This hasn't been used in forever. So yeah, you'll get to hear the vortex spinner. Speaking of painting, I did testing with the glossy yellow paint, and the glossy yellow paint succeeds in making things yellow. How about that? So I tested it on these little sprues, these trees that were parts of the submarine were. The first time I used it, it didn't coat very well, but then I shook it up so that the pigment was mixed up better. And this is 2 coats versus 1 coat here on the original, but this is just 1 coat. And it seemed to work. What I'm hoping, against all hope, is that after I spray the missile launching tubes this yellow, that it won't be very thick, okay? I primed them and this goes on because the clearances between the tubes and the holes in which they slide is really small, and I don't want to be scraping the paint off and having to restart. Anyway, 1 successful test. Yellow. Glossy yellow. Yay, spray paint. Worked. Okay, this has to be stirred. This has to be mixed really well, or else it's not going to work at all. So I'm going to put it on the vortex spinner thing here and give it a really big shaking for like a long time. Get to listen to the music and hear the buzzing in the background, and sometimes you get that effect, that rippling effect. That's something. It's just a certain RPM that even though I've got 2 layers of foam underneath this thing, trying to isolate the vibrations from the work surface, sometimes you can just really get it going there. And sometimes you get a resonance with other stuff that's piled up on the workbench. Supposed to be a little ball bearing. Yeah, it's finally coming loose. Yeah, that pigment is really gummed up in there. The bearing mixer thing is just coming loose. I'm going to let that set for just a second and go back to these. These are nice big flat surfaces, and these should stick on a sticky tack. So I can hold them and paint the edges. After turning the sticky tack into a volcano-shaped mound, trying to build it up around the feet of these things when I was painting them. Okay. So there's that. Oh yeah, these are really neat because they have magnets underneath them. I don't know, we can't do anything about it, but they repel each other. Okay. Which I need to keep remembering, because if I set these down next to each other, it can send one of them flying. In fact, it did once. I had a model not too different than that, and it was on one of these, and then I set the other one down next to it, and it really went. It jumped like about 4 inches. It fell on its side and broke off an arm and a leg. So, yeah. And great fun playing with these, but not so much fun when there's something on it and it knocks it over and breaks it. I'm going to give this like another 30 seconds which is boring, but, you know, the paint needs to be mixed. As I discovered, an unmixed paint just does not cover very well at all. Okay, well, at some point, just declare it's done because it's boring. Boring as all get out. So let's put some of this in the well here and spread it on and see how it looks. I haven't used this before other than for the color patch because I had no need for anything being glossy black, but I thought these demon bases might look good glossy. Maybe they will, maybe they won't, but that's the color they're going to be. This stream is probably going to end early today unless maybe I'll throw in another commercial for Dice and Dungeons before I finish the base on the other ogre giant multi-headed, before I wash this, okay, which is still a little wet. So before I wash that, I'm going to waste some time, I don't know, not wasted time, but just talking a little bit about Dice and Dungeons and stuff like that, because otherwise the stream will end too early. And I'm going to try to keep it going until, I don't know, can't see the clock. Is it just it's just 1 o'clock now? Yeah, I'd like to go at least until 1:30. Black. The other one's not. I shouldn't put this here. I'm waving the brush around. It's a great opportunity to put a big splat of glossy black paint right across the top of a model that's been detailed and washed and everything that can't be fixed. So these things are kind of flying, and the paint on here is going to be wet, so I can't really show you how this is supposed to work, but well, you can see that there's kind of a hole in the bottom here, so that hole goes on that peg. And then this one's flying kind of horizontally like that, and this other one is more upright, kind of like this. Hope Nikki and Alexis are, you know, if not pleased, at least they say, oh, okay, they look okay. Yeah, they're nice. You know, we'll get a compliment like that. Yeah, they look okay. Yeah, that's okay. They're good. Yeah. You know, a lot of my stuff kind of gets that reaction. It's not, I'm like, oh, that's amazing. It's usually, they look okay. It'll do. So, there. Now these are painted. Weird looking, like Tin Man hats or something. I don't know how glossy it will stay. The color chart makes it look very glossy, but it looks like it's kind of, you know, softening down. Yeah, I got it out of the way of the brush in one direction and put it right in front of the wash water. Almost disasterated that. That's a real word. At least as far as I'm concerned. Disasteration. Hi, Leuven. Welcome back. Yeah. So here are the bases that are plain old black, but here are the demon things, the flying demon things that I thought were Valkyries, but I was informed are definitely not Valkyries, but they are something that has a specific name that I think starts with an L, and I cannot remember it and never will. So they're supposed to be red and black themed, so they're mainly red. I gave them nice shiny armor, shiny red armor, and then the wings were red with black dry brushing on it. I think the wings came out okay. You know, the dry brushing, I used a pearlescent paint on it so that it stayed a little bit shiny. I think that came out all right. And then the deathly white faces, yeah, the gray wash worked okay. I probably would like it if it were a little more pigment in it, but not so much. So, clean now. Yeah, I'm just gonna, while I'm waiting for the paint on here, you can still see that there's shiny bits where the paint is still wet. It's still not ready for a wash. This craggly stone base, this is something Nikki did. I decided I was not going to try to paint this beast. There's just too, with all the faces and everything on it, it was just too daunting a task, so I didn't take it on. But she did and did a great job with it, especially the shading like on the loincloth. I mean, that came out really nice. The front and the back, it got darker near the bottom. She's really good about that. How does the liquid or water flow on it? And where would the dark streaks go? She's really good at that. But the base hadn't been painted, and so I painted it, and it's rocky, and it's just gray with a black wash, so I can't mess it up much. While these are drying, there they are. You can see shiny, not dry. Drying. Yeah, I mean, didn't she just? I mean, I hope we don't run into this. I hope this is not something that our party is planning, is that the DM is going to send us up against. Because, this is a gigantic creature. Our minifigs, my minifig, which is a furbog as large, it only comes up like to just above the knee. So, yeah, trying to attack this, our ranger that does a ranged attack could, aim at the heads and stuff. I'm going to be limited to hacking away at, like, the tendons in the back of the knee or something with my sword. Maybe even our bard who will use, like, vicious mockery or something, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's like 7 heads on this thing. Which one do you mock? Right? That's a good question. So if you use vicious mockery, maybe, which, does it work on all of them? And they all hear it at the same time. Does each one make a saving roll? And what happens if only like 3 out of 4 fail? Then what? Does the whole spell fail? Do they all need to fail in order for it to work? Does it just attack one head? That would be an interesting thing, is if we do run into this, and I'm, trying to kneecap it, I guess, because I can reach up about that far. If the bard decides to use vicious mockery, how do the mechanics work? That could be good for like 15 minutes of a stream, is just trying to explain how the mechanics of that would work on a 7-headed beast like this. There, I used up some time speculating about something that may be a speculation that may or may not ever happen. So that was a good use of time. But you just need to continue watching the episodes of our D&D campaign, because this may or may not ever show up, but you wouldn't know it unless you were watching, right? Or listening as a podcast anyway. Because if you didn't, then we could run into this and you'd never know it, and then you'd never know what the DM said were the mechanics of vicious mockery when used against a 7-headed beast. Of course, there's 7 heads unless they're all cooperating. if they're all cooperating, then, you know, it's fine, then the thing can walk. But if the 7 of them decide to all just do something different, then this would just like fall down and writhe. So maybe that's it, you know, maybe you just need to get like 2 or 3 of these heads to get confused and not work in synchrony with the other ones, and then the whole thing, you know, wouldn't be able to work. The whole thing would just sort of, you know, fail. That would be a little boring. It'd be kind of sad, but a sad way to end the combat. But it might happen. So, yeah, I don't know about what the mechanics are when you've got a multi-headed beast like this. It's very fearsome, but it might be just totally incompetent. It wasn't totally incompetent, because I'm assuming it started out as like an infant, right? Maybe it started out with 1 head, and then the heads all grew later on, and as it grew up, it became more complicated. Its teenage years must have really been hell. Right, when maybe it had like 4 heads at that point. It didn't, you know. And then they all started trying to do different things. That must have been really difficult. But obviously, it survived long enough to grow up somehow. So maybe they all agree on eating. You know, they might all the heads might agree. If nothing else, they agree on eating. Okay, well, that was a fun speculative waste of time. Yeah, I'm going to wash the base with black wash. I'm going to put it on pretty heavily because I want it to show off the texture of the stone. But you wouldn't know any of this unless you checked in. You know, I don't know how that works. 1 head might be the main controller, and then what? You just sort of play around with it, trying to figure out which one. I mean, you might expect like one of these ones on the top facing forward, like this one. This looks like the most natural head would be the one in control, but it might not be. It might be like one of these little belly heads, okay? This thing might have decided amongst them, they might have had a vote or something saying, what we need to do is confuse an attacker. So they would attack one of our heads thinking it was the chief, head in chief, and it turns out not to be because we successfully fooled it. But like you said, it's got 5 arms and 2 legs. Maybe they divided up the work so that each one of them takes 1 leg or 1 arm. Of course, you know, that would make it a little easier than if they were all trying to control the same limb, right? In that each one controlled 1 limb, but they still have to do a heck of a lot of coordinating. To do something just as simple as picking up a morsel of food and sticking it in one of their mouths. Oh yeah, then about that. So there's 5 heads here that control 5 arms, each one with an arm. Okay, so that now there's a dead carcass there, and they're just tearing it apart and eating. So I can see that if, like, this guy was controlling this arm, that this arm would feed this head, right? And so on. But what about the 2 that controlled the legs? Would they get fed at all? They'd be at the mercy of the arm controllers. This whole thing could get really complicated. It really could. Maybe these are incredibly intelligent, like super intelligent, with both intellectual and emotional intelligence, right? And they figured out how mutuality is essential, the mutual interdependence. Maybe they figured that out at an early age and just evolved that way. And that might be. These might be hyper intelligent, sophisticated, emotionally intelligent beings, all grafted onto one body like this, that is not only surviving but thriving because they've they reached some sort of, agreement about how things should work. Maybe we can learn a lot from this monster instead of being appalled by it or repulsed. Well, that was a way to spend some time. Now I need to mix the dark gray, the dark gray wash, and regardless of how these 7 heads and 5 arms and 2 legs are all work together to ensure that it not only survives but thrives. Regardless of that, it's sitting on a base that looks really bland and is demanding wash to bring out the texture of all the rockiness. After I'm done washing this, I'm not sure. There is one other creature but I'm not sure I want to paint the base or not, and I'm not sure what color I would do it. So I might just wrap things up early with like a summary of what has been accomplished and a preview of Submarine Wednesday. Okay, I'm going to be using a fair amount of this. Sometimes we had one bottle of this wash that every time it opened, it splattered. And there'd be dark gray wash just everywhere, on hands, sometimes even clothing. But this one is behaving. All right. So this is not real sophisticated or difficult. I'm just taking a lot of this wash and I am brushing it all over this rough textured base, wanting it to settle into the nooks and crannies and crevices. Get that all the stone-like contouring that was so carefully molded into the model becomes highlighted, right? Not to get too much on the feet. Up to, but not over. This is relaxing painting. I find this relaxing, just dabbing stuff on and knowing that. I mean, I guess to be blunt about it, that making a mess or making a mistake is actually a good thing in terms of getting the wash to be applied in a non-uniform way. I don't need to worry about brush marks. I don't need to worry about uniformity. I mean, I want it to be globby. And you can't really see it unless I move the camera around. Maybe here. Ooh, you can see that the wash did in fact do a lot of puddling. Just as it should. Now I need to get the camera back again so that it's sort of oriented right. There, that's not too bad. So, yeah, that turned out okay. And I used up the wash. There's a big puddle there. That'll take like forever to dry. Distribute it a little bit. Right, there. Now I get to try to clean this brush. Oh, well, wrapping up early today. I'm going to wrap up a little bit early because I really don't have anything else to work on. So I'll just spend some time recapping. I was able to finish these guys. It took, the little detail stuff took forever. But before break, I did the dry brushing on the wings, which had been base cooked last Friday. Got the faces and hands painted, and the horns painted, and the boots and the blades painted, and all of those had at least 2 layers on them. Like even the horns, I don't know if it shows too much, but I put little red points on the tips of the horns, you know, trying to act like I was kind of artistic. And got the bases painted, and then as a bonus, I painted the base of this 7-headed beast thing that Nicole had done earlier. And there was another model that maybe the base it's standing on could be painted, but I'm not sure what color to do it, so I'm going to avoid making a mistake in doing that. I've been painting the bases of the demons, like this purple one. This purple one I did a week or so ago. I've been just painting the bases black, and that seems to work. Thank you. So on Wednesday, I go back to the submarine. And I don't know, this is a real make or break point in the submarine construction, even more than some of the others. I've been working on the missile launch room where the missile tubes are, you know, for the tubes that launch the ballistic missiles. Been doing that forever. And I finally tested the yellow spray paint, the gloss yellow, because the tubes are supposed to be yellow. And I finally tested it, and it makes things yellow and glossy and dries pretty well. So I've got the 16 missile tubes primed, and sometime either today or tomorrow, I'm going to get the yellow spray paint out and try to paint them, trying to get them uniformly yellow. I hope it works. Sometimes spray painting is really easy. Other times the application is uneven and then it just looks all crappy. So one issue is just getting them uniformly painted, and hopefully I can get them at least this uniform, right? Yellow. But the next thing is, once they're painted, since the clearance of these tubes going in through these holes in the mid-deck is really tight, I'm hoping that the combination of the primer and the top coat doesn't add so much to the diameter. I mean, even if it's just like 128th of an inch, just a tiny bit, it might make them too tight to fit through the holes. And so I'm going to have to fit each one through custom slowly to make sure that they go through without scraping the paint off. And then sometimes if it doesn't work, I'm going to need to use a file and remount the hole. I can't do much about the cylinders of the tubes anymore. I don't have to remount the hole so it's large enough for them to go through. The way it's supposed to work is they're supposed to be cemented into the bottom deck, and then the middle deck is supposed to just slide over them. But that's nonsensical. It just doesn't happen that way, because that assumes that all 16 of them are in perfectly vertical in exactly the same position as the holes in the deck above them. And if I were doing this when I was like 11 or 12 the last time I built one of these things, that would be fine. Just do it when the cement is still wet, and if it makes a mess, whatever. But I'm trying to do it a little more carefully. So I'm going to assemble it backward. I'm going to put them all through the holes in the mid deck, and then set them into the bottom deck, probably just using like rubber cement, because I don't want the cement to be dissolving the plastic in the paint and making a mess of it. And contact cement might work. It's a little bit hard. I don't know. I might use the contact cement because it does give. It provides flexibility. Like you can even see, like on this one, see it move? Yeah, the hand broke off before and it's contact cemented on, so it holds, but it provides flexibility. So I might use that if I can control where it is. And it doesn't, it's really thick. I don't want it to swap around and show. But if I get them on like the inside of the tubes, it just needs to adhere just a little bit. It just needs to hold long enough for me to slide the two decks that are full of missile tubes into the hull and to get the bulkheads lined up. If that can be done, then there's still a little flexibility. Then I can put this third deck in, which is the one that has the missile hatches on the top. And that's still a conundrum because the tops of the hatches are supposed to be painted yellow, but there's these little circles and there's no way to hand paint that with any kind of accuracy. So I was going to try to do a template using pieces from another submarine. I might still try to do that tomorrow, either today or tomorrow. I didn't do that when I test painted this because I wanted to see if the yellow paint worked at all. Anyway, I am finished with what I'm doing here today. These are the bases that these demons fly on. Okay, and that's an okay color. That's a very nice, decent black. It's becoming a little less glossy as it dries. These guys are done, and I think they came out okay. And the base of this is going to take a long time to dry because there's a lot of wash that's puddled up intentionally puddled up in the valleys, the little divots. Yeah, so Submarine Wednesday is coming up. We'll see how that goes. If it goes well, then it'll be a big breakthrough in the completion of the submarine. I'll just be moving on then to the mechanical rooms, which will still be kind of a pain because there's a whole lot of little parts of machinery. They're all kind of painted the same color though, so it's pretty much just putting 2 or 3 coats of this kind of beige paint on to make sure that they're covered, and then making sure that the edges where the machinery meets the base of the deck is painted right. And then there's a bulkhead with some details still on it, the control panel and some fire extinguishers and stuff. Nothing that I hadn't done before, but it takes a while. But yeah, even more than the control room, which was kind of an off-putting challenge, this missile room should have been straightforward and easy, but it's just, the parts just don't fit, and so it's been kind of a challenge. But we got some minifigs done. I have no clue what I'm going to do on Friday. I don't have any more that are unpainted, but Submarine Wednesday, and more or less 10 o'clock starting and continuing until either 2 or until I become so frustrated I have to quit. Just, something to look forward to. Tension, excitement, frustration, success, jubilation. Who knows what emotions will happen, if any, on Submarine Wednesday. And then hopefully back again on Friday, where I'll be doing more Dungeons and Dragons kind of stuff. So, ending a little bit early today, but thank you all for watching or listening. Feel free, please, to become a follower. Yeah, thank you. We'll see how it goes. Thanks for becoming a follower. Got a new follower today. That was wonderful. If you'd like to become a subscriber, that would be welcome too. And there's always the availability on patreon.com/diceanddungeons, patreon.com/diceanddungeons to become a patron. And you can support Dice and Dungeons, not only relaxing painting, but our D&D campaign. And if you listen or watch or both our D&D campaign, you will also be treated to a promotion of patreon.com. So that's all I've got today. So I'm just going to wrap up. Thanks, everybody, and see you on Submarine Wednesday.